What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, the current state of the job market, 2024 going into 2025. So, right now, for all of you that are looking for work or you have been laid off and you're looking to rejoin the work market, it is bleak. Okay? There's so many people out there in the job market that are looking for work. And now it is taking almost 10 times the effort to secure the same job you previously had for less pay. Now, that must be an exercise in frustration. And it's definitely some rough and difficult times out there for some of you. And I do empathize and sympathize with you. And again, this right now is an employer's market. Okay, it's not an employee market by any stretch of the imagination. And coupled with the fact that quite a bit of the jobs are in the short term being offshored to other countries, that's making finding a job even harder, as well as increasing the competition, right? So, the one thing to keep in mind is that this doesn't last forever, but while it does suck, okay? And quite a bit of the things that I'm hearing from some of my friends, as well as personally seeing, is that a lot of the jobs now are just asking for more, paying less than before. And a good example of that would be job descriptions that basically have between 2 to 5 separate jobs grouped together, requiring the candidate to do these with lesser pay just for one job. All right, so that's one thing that exists out there right now. The other thing that is existing now is the fact that you have to submit psychological assessments, you have to submit an assignment, and you have to have somewhere between 3 to 9 interviews. That is obnoxious. I could not even imagine what it's like to go through that process, having to find a job. It must be demoralizing, it must be exhausting. It also feels extremely unfair. But that is a byproduct of the market being flooded with people and companies now having access to a larger and wider pool of candidates that is not geographically limited. Okay? And that makes things much, much harder for a job candidate that's applying for a job. Now, what complicates the job search also in these times is the fact that employers have a preference for candidates with continuous employment rather than those that had a disruption in their employment, like being fired or laid off, which is a very ironic and comical considering that it is these exact same employers that cause these conditions, that they will lay off people and they will pretty much not consider laid off people, but instead look for people that are still employed. It is gruesome, brutal, and frankly inhumane at this stage. The other aspect is that companies will require a candidate to come in and pretty much act like a business owner. Okay? Gone are the days where you came in, you did a particular process or a job, and that was it. No. Now you're expected to be good at selling and marketing yourself during the interview and even after you get the job. You're expected to be an analytics superstar. You're expected to be a strategic decision maker almost. You're expected to operate and work the same hours and expend the same energy and effort as a CEO, but with a dismal, okay, proportion wise compensation and salary. Make that make sense. Like the job descriptions that will say things like has to be entrepreneurial, has to, work extended hours. People that are entrepreneurial do not get a 9 to 5 job. It's not even a 9 to 5 anymore, but you get my point. People that are entrepreneurial do not get jobs. They don't work for other people. So that's why they're entrepreneurs. But you're going to see these silly descriptions and requirements. You got to be entrepreneurial. You got to be a self-starter. You got to be a systems thinker. You got to be a good networker. Don't even get me on the systems thinking, component, okay? Employees, by subject of the roles and responsibilities they have, cannot be systems thinker. Okay? You're responsible for a specific component, a specific process or processes, and that's it. If you are somebody that, let's say, working in a financial institution where there's a treasury function and the treasury is broken down by front office, mid office, and back office, each of these are separate from each other, okay? Each is a different skill set. Now, does that mean that there isn't a person out there that has knowledge and awareness of all of these? Of course there is, okay? But they're the minority, not the majority. Majority of people, when they apply for a front office job in treasury, they expect to come into an interview and speak to a front office job experience. And then they're surprised to find that they are basically being questioned about the whole treasury function and lose a job for something that basically they shouldn't be evaluated on. Okay? The other thing is the behavioral component. Don't even get me started on these. There's never, ever an objective metric or standard against which you can be assessed. These are so subjective, okay, depending on who is interviewing you. All right? That's all it comes down to, is basically what the person interviewing you thinks. And this is why these behavioral questions are a load of nonsense, because you can even sit there and lie. You can tell them what they want to hear, which is what a lot of people do. And this is how you end up with very toxic work environments, by the way. These behavioral questions do not predict anything. They do not evaluate anything. If anything, they end up penalizing, okay, the good candidates and rewarding the toxic ones. What else? Another aspect of this job market is the fact that you are pretty much a commodity. If you have an education and a skill set like everyone else, like you have a bachelor, you have an MBA, you use the same tools and softwares that everyone else uses, then there's only two things left for you to be evaluated on. One is your price, okay? And two is your likability. All right? So price pretty much means is that the cheaper you are in relation to the value you're contributing, the better you are considered for the job. And that's why a lot of jobs are being offshored. It's because companies wanna do the existing standardized job for less. The other piece of this is your likability, okay? That you have no control over. You shouldn't have to adjust who you are to get a job. But the reality is you do, okay? Most people will play the game and pretend to be something they're not, and that's why you end up with work environments full of toxic, miserable people, okay? And it is just a savage cycle there. So these are the two things you're left to be evaluated on, is basically your price and your likability, which the likability aspect is very, very subjective. Okay. The other aspect of this really is that it's just, it seems like the job market is just progressively getting worse and worse. A job used to be a safe route. You took a job because you didn't want to take on the risk of being an entrepreneur or a business owner. All right. But it seems now that greed has reached such a point, as well as, to be frank, the lack of any innovation, creativity, or any real value proposition, that people as employees are expected to act and behave and perform like a business owner. Which is why you'll see a lot of people are leaving their 9-to-5 jobs and taking a risk on starting their own business, because you're pretty much at that point, right? There's no incentive to be an employee. You're just, you're discarded easily. You are basically at the whim and mercy of whoever is paying your check. There's no safety, there's no consistency, there's no longevity anymore, which is ironic considering that a lot of employers are looking for employees with long tenures at their existing employers and loyalty. Haha, loyalty. That one always cracks me up. It's such a abusive power dynamic where employers have all the leverage and employees have none. And there's no humanity left anymore. There's no recourse. Anything goes wrong, you can't even get a due process because HR doesn't really care about people. HR is there to protect the organization and its interests and the interests of those that are running the organization and the key decision makers. So you're literally left with nothing. You can sacrifice your time, your energy, your health, and your family even for nothing. And you're not, it used to be at some point, I guess, tolerable or acceptable when salaries were good, and even if you got laid off, you had enough to lean on and you get a job quickly. But now you don't get paid enough to have a safety net, and it takes longer and longer to secure a job. And unless you have something extremely unique about you and your skill set that differentiates you, okay, or you happen to know somebody, you're well connected that they're willing to give you a job, or you get lucky with your timing of entering the job market, it's getting harder and harder to not only get a job, but also to hold down a job. You can do everything right. And it's still get laid off or fired. And don't even get me started now about the increasing jealousy and envy in work environments. It used to be just the toxicity of a bad boss, somebody that's narcissistic or sociopathic. Now you have to deal with people being envious and jealous of you if they perceive you to have something that they don't. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your work output, but it could be the clothes you wear. It could be even that you're handsome or good looking. It's just mind-boggling to me how toxic, and I wish I can say childlike, but that would be cruel to children. It's just the lack of responsibility and accountability that is so systemic now and is becoming increasingly normalized that most people just accept it as the way things are. And they will say things like, well, you have to develop a thicker skin. I mean, why? I'm the guy or the gal with the talent, with the skill set, and the people that are hiring me aren't even remotely as qualified as I am. They're just there for political reasons. Oh yeah, don't get me even started on this, where the people you have to report to that are hiring you are less qualified than you. But to really put salt in the wound and rub it in, not only do you have to report to them, but you have to do all the shit work for them, including in a lot of times their own job descriptions, and get paid less, which is infuriating. And this has been a trend now for decades. But back in the day, it used to be that when you had somebody that is your superior that you had to report into, they knew more than you. Okay? That's why they had a leadership position. That is not the case anymore. Now, people and companies are hiring candidates and expecting them to come in, not only act as a business, but like a consultant, but without the consultant fee. Okay, at least consultants make a killing by the hour. But it's just squeezing everybody to their limits as much as they can. And it's becoming increasingly normalized. Okay, and people are accepting it. And those that don't, kind of like yours truly years ago, built out and started, my own thing. And truth be told is, even if it's not normalized and people accept it, a lot of people simply are in circumstances where they cannot or do not believe that they have the skill or the confidence or the ability to start their own thing. And that's fine, okay? I totally understand that. But it's just that it's getting to a point where the job market is just sheer and pure abuse, okay? It's just horrific what people have to go through right now. And in a lot of ways, like I said earlier, I empathize and sympathize, but I'm also so grateful that I don't have to deal with this mess. It's just brutal. And because the market is this brutal, people in hiring positions and in decision-making positions in companies will actually become more and more abusive. And they know they can get away with it, okay? They'll get away with it because of the power dynamics. They'll never get penalized, and that's why you're seeing a rise in narcissism and sociopathy in a lot of institutions. But on top of that, there is so many people that are desperate for work, okay, that they will take on anything and they will endure anything. And in a lot of ways, I do not blame these people for having to do what they have to do to survive and take care of their families. That's very admirable, but it also shouldn't be that way. And unfortunately, it is. So I think the last thing I wanted to talk about is also the fixation and the obsession with job candidates having to demonstrate impact to get a job. Listen, most jobs do not, at the individual contributor level, have impact based objectives or metrics, okay? And what a lot of people will do, and I know because I had friends that tell me that, they basically make them up and they lie about that impact. So it's such a mind fuck in a way that these companies are asking individual contributors for impact during the interviewing process when the jobs do not have any, and even they do not measure impact that way, okay? You can talk about performance evaluations, but you're not really assessing in performance evaluation. And even then, performance evaluations are very subjective. That's where a lot of people get burnt, and it's used as a way to penalize people, to force them to produce more work. Unless you're part of the inner circle, then it's used to give you a promotion and a bullshit salary increase. But the whole impact thing, again, impact tends to be measured enterprise-wide or departmental-wide, but it's extremely hard to narrow it down to an individual contributor because the job roles are connected to each other and reliant on each other. So to come down to, for example, an individual in a department that's responsible for a sub process and expect them to talk about their impact on the strategic objective of the organization, get the fuck out of here. Like, this is just bullshit, okay? And I don't understand why this gets asked. It really makes no sense. How is somebody that's making 60 to 80,000 a year is supposed to sit down and talk about their achievements and impact in relation to organizational wise strategic objectives? And it's one thing for it to be a small to medium enterprise. It's another when you're interviewing for like a Fortune 500 and they ask this question. It's just sometimes these people, I feel like they're just retarded. They're reading a script. They don't understand what the script is during the interviewing process, and they ask these questions. And one of the easiest way to test this is that if you're in an interview and you get questions and the interviewer is giving you a hard time, towards the end when they tell you what questions you have for me, ask them the same fucking questions they asked you. Like, turn the tables on them and watch them get flustered. Back in the day when I used to do this, none of them could answer their own questions. So why are you asking them? Like, why am I supposed to provide you with an answer and then come to work for you when you don't know? Why am I not the boss? Why am I not sitting in your seat? It is just retarded out there. It's organized incompetence at a level that is just, honestly, it is a miracle that everything works. I mean, at least on the outside, it looks like it's working, but I know, having been in the back end, it's a complete mess. Okay. But it's just, a lot of these organizations and people out there should have lost their jobs and failed or came to an end a long time ago, be it the individual roles or these institutions. What keeps them up, okay, what keeps them up is this systemic corruption and organized incompetence. That's all it comes down to. And people will rationalize it in so many ways, okay, to make it all right. And here's where it gets even more interesting, is that a lot of it isn't even illegal to do. It's legal, okay? You're not really breaking a law by not doing the right thing in a lot of times, which again is just mind-boggling. We have anything in nature, when it doesn't perform or work, it basically dies out. Not in institutions and corporations. They just decay and fester for so long, getting one band-aid after the other, when the whole thing should just collapse and die. And this is why the job market is so messy. It's not just that the current conditions, it's just how the whole system works, okay? And it seems to be only getting worse and worse. And these systems would collapse if there hasn't been bailouts and ways for them to circumvent basically the challenge that they run into. You know, the two biggest expenses for any organization are their human resources and technology. And increasingly now, human resources being offshored to reduce costs and basically improve the bottom line, when technically, to improve the bottom line, you should actually be generating better business, being more innovative. But it's extremely difficult to do that. It really is. So I understand the logic behind it, but again, penalizing people that literally busted their ass for you, it's just not right. It's not right. Anyways, I digress. I'm gonna keep ranting on here. If you're out there and you are in the job market, my heart goes out to you, and I do hope that things work out very soon for you, be it if you decide to go the entrepreneurial route or get another job. All the best for you. I think it's very important to realize and understand that this is just temporary. It's not forever. The good times don't last forever. Neither do the bad times. It's a cycle. You get the good and the bad together. All right. So keep that in mind. Keep your head up. Stay persistent. Stay resilient, and keep going, moving forward. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, "When you find yourself walking in hell, keep walking forward." And I'll leave you with that for today. All right, you guys, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. As per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.